Can I share my screen while you're doing that or
Mhm.
no?
You can.
Okay. Can I share my screen while you're doing that or no?
So we're actually live, so we can go ahead and start letting everybody in.
Can you see the David T. Howard video looping?
Yes.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. We are actually going to start having our conversation at 5:45, just to give everyone a chance to get on. Please enjoy the slideshow showing our students and what makes David T. Howard so special. We will start promptly at 5:45. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Rising RAM Curriculum Night. We will begin our discussion promptly at 5:45. Please enjoy just this preview again about all the great things at Howard.
It won't connect to my AirPods.
Ms. Scott, can you transition to the slide deck for tonight? Good evening. I am Takesha Hollis, principal at David T. Howard Middle School. On the call, we have Miss Scott. She is our sixth grade counselor. We have Mr. Anglin. He will be discussing social studies. Mr. Ford will be discussing science. I think if you can go to the next slide, Miss Jackson will be discussing mathematics. And Miss Hurt will be discussing ELA. So we have someone that can answer all your questions. Please feel free to place that information or any questions you have in the chat. Again, I am Miss Hollis, principal here at Howard, and Miss Willingham is the assistant principal here. She handles sixth grade directly right now. I'm not sure if she's on the call just yet. But we will be mindful of your time and continue to move through our slides. If you have any questions, we will take questions at the end, and you can always feel free to place the questions in the chat, and someone from the team will respond. Thank you.
I just spoke with, this is Mr. Ford in science. I just spoke with Miss Hurt and she is trying to log in. So I don't know if we want to go past this one and then come back.
Okay.
Miss Jackson?
Hi, I'm here. My name is Miss Jackson. I am sixth grade math, and I will be covering accelerated 6 and 7 and math 6. So some prerequisites that we want to make sure that our rising sixth graders have are like multiplication and division fluency. We want to make sure that they are very strong in those areas. We also want to make sure that they understand the 4 operations when it comes to multi-digit whole numbers. So your addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. We want to make sure that they are aware of those things. And general fraction understanding, like how to find equivalent fractions. Those are also some look fors coming into sixth grade. So some of the units covered are listed here, but many of them are units that they have covered in sixth grade. In fifth grade, and some of them are newly introduced. So they will cover statistics and your number system fluency. We will also cover ratios, rates, and proportional relationships or reasoning. From there, we will begin to understand expressions, and then we move into one-step expressions and inequalities. We will also explore area and volume. And from there, we go over numbers and their opposites. So those are rational numbers. We go back to rational numbers a little bit and talk about the opposites of those numbers. And lastly, we will cover graphing rational numbers. So they get a bit of it all in sixth grade. So accelerated math, you might notice that some of the standards or the concepts units covered are the same. They go in depth a little bit more. It extends into the 7th grade standards. So if you look here, there are little asterisks there, little stars there, and it tells you what units specifically extend to the 7th grade standard. So the standards, they will still get 6th grade standards, but again, it will go a little bit in depth into some of the 7th grade standards. Excuse me. So students are assessed for learning in math each week, and this is through a variety of different ways. So some of the ways that they're assessed are through daily checks. Those are their homeworks. We have common formative assessments that we do typically to make sure that the students are understanding a lot of the concepts throughout the unit. Class activities are also ways that we check, and exit tickets. So those are some of the formative assessments that we do in math. The summative assessments are your typical quizzes and unit assessments, and also your MAP growth assessments. But those are the ways that your students will be assessed throughout the year. And these are resources that we use if students need some additional support or if they need to extend knowledge. We are on Schoology, so all of our information, all classwork information and resources are posted on Schoology. Paper is a tutorial app that we use And IXL is, IXL is an app that we use for just to extend knowledge. It's a lot of good practice there that we have students use. Khan Academy and Delta Math, they're a lot like the IXL. They do provide different visuals and videos for students. And Infinite Campus is where you can check for all of the students' grades and different assignments that they might have.
All right, on to social studies. I'm Mr. England. I'm one of the 4 social studies teachers for 6th grade. We have 4 big areas that we concentrate in 6th grade. We'll start off with Europe, then we'll jump to Latin America, Canada, and Australia. Once your scholars get to 7th grade, they will cover Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. And then 8th grade is a focus on US history, especially with Georgia and how that impact with the US is and was. These are 4 big quadrants that we'll talk about, and we'll kind of see this over those first 2 years. So your students will kind of start learning about geography, where these places are, how they've been shaping events. We'll jump to history, which is really about the 1900s until today. Like different government styles, along with how these different countries use their resources, how they make their money, how they kind of interact with each other. And that's be our economic part. This is really going to be our breakdown for the entire year. So your first semester, we really kind of hammered down a lot of the fundamentals because we understand social studies may or may not be in the elementary school space. So we'll use our European unit to stretch that out for the entire first semester. That way we're really covering those math skills, what those geography kind of items are. We'll go into in depth into our government terms, our econ terms. That way, when we get to our second semester with Latin America, Canada, and Australia, we'll be able to reinforce those fundamentals that we developed during that first semester, talking about Europe. And along with each unit, we'll have different novel studies. So we'll have a novel study that's called Warhorse, which will be covered in semester 1, which goes with World War I unit, kind of laying down those foundations again. And we'll have a couple different novels that we'll do with each unit as well, kind of incorporating that literacy into our social studies part. And a lot of our formative assessments, our formatives, we'll do our kind of check-in for those do nows and our exit tickets. We'll have kind of different learning platforms that we'll utilize as well, just kind of for those check-ins. And a lot of those daily activities that we do in class as well to make sure they are right on task. Your summit assessments are all kind of based in Edulastic, where we'll do our quizzes and our tests on that particular platform. We do have a lot of different projects we like to use in social studies to get everybody kind of interactive and moving around. And there is, of course, the final exam.
If we can go back to the ELA portion, Ms. Hurt is now on. As we're transitioning to that, thank you, Mr. England. Ms. Jackson, you have a question about the average weekly homework expectations in math.
Average weekly homework expectations. So typically students will have 1 to 2 problems per day in math to answer. So the weekly expectation is not a lot, it's not a lot, maybe an hour a week. And that's aside from like practice and things of that nature.
You ready for me? You ready for me? Let's go. Forgive my tardiness. I'll have a great example of irony tomorrow. I stayed at work to do this because I didn't want to have any computer problems. And then at the last minute, I had a little crash. So assessments, and even though there are lots of changes that I'll talk about in a moment, one thing that will remain consistent is the type of assessments that we do. We have, of course, formative assessments that involve reading practice and writing responses and grammar activities and formal quizzes. But for our summative assessments, we will still do the ones that are done through the system. Right Score, which is it's what it says. It's a writing assessment that's done 3 to 4 times a year. And then we have our unit assessments are based on the units that we study in language arts. And of course, we have the MAP growth testing, which assesses reading skills and writing skills. We have a new ELA set of standards. And here you're able to capture those and see what the new standards are. I think the main difference in the standards is that now it's a move away from Common Core standards, and they're focused on built-in learning progression. You can see from one year to the next, the standard remains the same, but what is captured in the classroom is on a higher level each year. All right, so we're all excited about our new book adoption. We are now going to use HMH curriculum, which is a move away from Amplify. It has been newly adopted, so we haven't actually had an opportunity yet to have books in hand, and we have a lot of training to do. But the things that I can tell you about it now is that it's very different because it has an instructional design that is based on the gradual release model. So as students come together for whole class learning, it kind of splinters off into peer collaboration and eventually moves to independent learning. So that's one of the things that we thought we'd really enjoy. That's different from what we were doing before. That was different from what we were doing before in Amplify. The other thing that we liked was the social emotional learning part. The social emotional learning is intertwined in every unit. As we go from unit to unit, there's a question that is the essential question, and it is based on social emotional learning. And there's a particular topic, and then all of the reading assignments and writing assignments are built around that. Also, there's Writable, which is a built-in writing program. There's an online writing coach in addition to what we as teachers do. There are opportunities for students to go in and just try writing, write different drafts, and then they'll get feedback not only from us, but also from the system as well. So, and that is built in every unit as well. And then there are also, I'm trying to look past this, culturally responsive pedagogy. There is the selections are much more diverse. They come from everywhere, and they consider things that are going on in society, things that students are concerned about, things that students grapple with in their own lives, and things that they hear in community, in the world. So it's quite appropriate now that we are using culturally responsive text as opposed to just in one type of wheelhouse. And then the genres, we have fiction, nonfiction, poetry, drama, and media study. Media study is something that's new, but it's also something new that's on our standards. So there will be more attention to students interacting with media in the classroom. So on tests, there will be opportunities for them to use media, answer questions about media, and just manipulate media as we are going on in the test and in the class. Sorry. I thought I'd share some of sample units for you just to give you an idea of what the actual book looks like. The first unit, Discovering Your Voice, what are ways to make yourself heard? And as I said, this is one example of how SEL is interwoven into all of the units, as well as what are in the typical standards like text structure, purpose, figurative language, arguments, and so on. Next unit, Never Give Up. What keeps someone from giving up? And the key learning objectives are poetry or poetic forms, inferences, some of the traditional standards that are still intact. The next one, finding courage. How do you find courage in the face of fear? Which is something that many students have to encounter as they're moving on to something that's big, new, and scary, and so are their minds. Character and plot, setting, central idea, media, and structure. So again, there's the media. Then surviving the unthinkable. What does it take to be a survivor? Something that students really have to think about now. And in that section, they get some drama, elements of drama, and also, again, integration of information from media. And one other, hidden truths, what hidden truths about people in the world are revealed in stories. And that one, the main focus is on narrator and point of view. So it kind of runs the gamut of all of the things that we would typically talk about and more in a cohesive way that helps students feel familiar and comfortable with the subjects. Oh, before you go on for it, sorry, Ms. Willingham. So I was supposed to mention to you, because it's not stated explicitly in the assessments, we do give students an opportunity to read books of choice, and based on the book, they will have formal book reports, and that is quarterly. So that gives them an opportunity to explore things that they may be interested in addition to the units that are in our book. And I believe there are some novel sets or opportunities for novel sets that they could actually pull from in HMH. All right.
Hey everybody, I'm Spence Ford. I am the 6th grade facilitator for science, and so I'll kind of talk to you about the 2 offerings that we have here at Howard in reference to 6th grade science. So something I want you to kind of pay attention to as I go through both slides. The first one is Earth science, and then the second one will be Earth systems. Just kind of like look at the topics as I kind of briefly read over them and see how they're written differently, because Earth science is our traditional 6th grade science class. It covers a lot of the same material that students got in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, and we kind of combine them into one course. And it's the class that if you had any of your kids, or students who've come through in before the last couple years, this would have been what everybody took. So this will look very familiar to most parents who have older kids. So in astronomy, we look at everything from the Big Bang to star formation to the theories about the early solar system. We go into detail on planets, comets, asteroids, and meteors. So we take a long time looking at astronomy. Then we move into meteorology and hydrology, so weather and all things tied into water. So we look at the water cycle, look at air masses and fronts, storms, heat transfer, weather forecasting. We look at oceanography, waves, currents, and tides, salinity, the deep sea landforms. So not life science. So we don't look at the animals, but we look more at the kind of the geographical and geological features. We also cover geology. So layers of the earth, rocks and minerals, rock cycle, plate tectonics, all the way to weathering and erosion. And then we kind of culmination of the year, we take a lot of this together, typically around around May or so, and we look at fossil fuels, human impact on the environment, what are we doing, positive and negative, to help out, to shape this planet, and then looking at alternative energy and technology for the future. So if we look now at the standards for Earth systems, which is the next slide, here you can even see how they're written is different. You see processes a lot. So this is a high school course, and I'll talk about this again in a minute in the next slide, but this is a high school course that is our gifted served. So the material here covers not just 6th grade earth science, but also 7th grade life science and 8th grade physical science. So those are merged together into this course. And so you can see here like climate processes, analyzing and interpreting data about how temperature and precipitation produce climate regions, surface processes, geographical landforms on and under the surface, and what agents cause them. Astronomy is not as detailed, but as far as like the amount of material we cover, but we go into depth. So we look at explanations about the formation of the early solar system, the early universe. We do a lot more in geology than they'll do in earth science. So this is look at things like stratigraphy, uniformitarianism, dating methods like relative and absolute dating. We look at plate movement, mass extinctions, how all of these things are kind of working together, not just from a geological perspective, but we bring in physics and chemistry, different aspects of biology kind of get mixed in there. And then we do have a culminating unit again, where we look at like human impact on the environment, but we go specifically more into it. You can see it at the bottom, anthropogenic modifications to Earth's atmospheres and oceans. So it's a more in-depth class. All right. And then here I tried to kind of put a few things together. I talked to some of the other science teachers, so we kind of share a few things we wanted parents to know. So like I said before, it does assume, because it is a high school course, that they're already pretty proficient in a lot of the topics that are covered in middle school. So if you don't know them, they can pick them up quickly. It's upon completion of the course, this is the thing that students and parents like a lot. It does give you a high school science elective credit. So once you complete the course, as long as you pass the course, then you get a high school science elective credit, which is nice. But I do need parents and students to remember it is much more challenging. There's more work, there's more rigor. Science fair is mandatory for students in Earth Systems, but not in Earth Science. So if you're in Earth Science, it's optional, but in Earth Systems, every student has to participate, and we start that week 1. So they're going to be coming into 6th grade, taking a high school course plus doing science fair, and we don't have control over that. That's kind of set by the district and the state guidelines and deadlines, but those things are happening at the same time. So it always, the first bit of school is a challenge, all the readjustment. Typically second semester is a little bit easier because science fair is over and they kind of adjusted to what we're doing. And kind of, everyone's had that adjustment period for the first half of the year. And that last part's pretty important. Critical thinking, self-paced, and directive learning, very
Ginger's
necessary
face in the
skills.
dishwasher. It's okay. It's okay.
All right, so I guess I didn't know if someone was trying to speak in there, but it is yeah. So hopefully that helps you out understanding the differences. If you have any questions while I'm still on, you can put them in the chat and I'll try to get to them. If not, you can always email me and I'll answer what I can, and I'll try to get back to you when I can. I think there might have been one more slide on assessments. It looks very similar to what I saw happening in the social studies department. Our formatives are do nows, exit tickets. We use Kahoot and quizzes and Blookits. We'll use common formative assessments as well, and just kind of those daily observations, those informal and formal assessments. For summative, it does say test on formative, but we've pretty much switched over to all Edulastic now. So we use Edulastic as our testing platform. And then we do a lot of labs and a lot of projects. We do have final exams, but there are no milestones for either course. So for Earth Systems or Earth Science, we don't have milestones in 6th grade.
So this is just re-emphasizing information that was shared at our family night. We are trying to continue with doing 2 segments of gifted courses for our gifted learners. And for our students that are talented, so if they score really high in that space, we do allow access to the accelerated math and high school earth systems. It is not limited to gifted learners only, but those two courses do count as the two gifted segments. So that means that the student has qualified for that placement into those courses based on the standards that are given as expectations from the district. If, let's say, the student qualifies for accelerated math, but not high school earth systems, or the parent opts out of the high school earth systems class, then that second gifted segment will come from ELA or social studies. I do want to point out that the accelerated 6, 7A and earth systems classes are not gifted classes. They're just advanced coursework. So they're doing more than what is typically done by a sixth grader. Any of the courses that the students take would actually be served by a gifted secondary teacher, which means that there is no pullout in from now on, now through high school. The students will not receive a gifted pullout model. The teacher is both certified as a gifted teacher and a content teacher, and so they will be serviced utilizing the gifted and talented instructional standards that you see listed here by that content teacher. So we're gonna pause to answer some questions in the chat or to give parents an opportunity if they want to come off mute to ask any specific questions, because we've gone over all 4 core content coursework classes, and we have gone over the gifted segment piece. So before we move forward, I want to give an opportunity for questions, and thank you to the 6th grade teacher team that did give voice to our content delivery options that we have for next year.
I am monitoring the chat. I see answers have been coming in pretty quickly. I don't see any new questions.
All right, so we can move forward, Ms. Scott.
Okay. All right, so this is just the criteria for our accelerated math and earth systems. I did see where some people did put in the chat regarding that question. So for accelerated math, the criteria is the students must meet all 3 for placement. So they must have a RIT score of 227 for winter math and for spring math. So 227 or above for both winter and spring math. And then they also must have a yearly average of an 85%. Students that do not meet that criteria, they will be scheduled for Math 6. And then for our Earth Systems criteria, which is our high school course, it's our spring math reading. Their achievement level needs to be proficient or above. Then if more students qualify, then there are available spaces. There'll be a random selection to determine the placement. And then students who do not meet that criteria or are not in that random selection, they will be scheduled for Science 6. This is some of the student support services that we have at Howard. So we have our 504 and SST specialist. Her name is Ms. Rhonda Hudson. Her email is here. We also have IEPs for support for students, and our special education lead teacher is Ms. Patty Marin. Her email is there. The students are also provided teacher tutorial times. They can sign up for tutorials with any content teacher, morning and afternoon tutorials. We typically will send out links for those tutorials and a tutorial schedule to students if those are needed. And then we have a free online tutorial service that the students will be able to access in My Backpack, and it is called Paper Tutorial. And of course, these are things that we do share with our students so they are aware of their teacher tutorial days and then also paper tutorial. Students are in need of emotional support, needing to, just talk with someone. I am available. Again, I'm the 6th grade counselor. There's no appointment. Typically, parents will send me emails or the students know how to contact me on Schoology. Also, their teachers also do some recommendations as well if those students are needing assistance with anything throughout the year.
So let me clarify something. The children do not choose their gifted courses. If they are, they qualify for the accelerated math or the earth systems and choose to take the earth systems class, then that would count as the segment. Otherwise, it would be at where the school has availability in their course. It is not a selection process for the gifted class because the teachers are gifted, certified in those classes. So it would just happen based on this schedule. Let's see. The other question is, do we have data on how advantageous accelerated math is in high school? I don't really know how to specifically answer the question. I will do the best that I can to answer that question because it's kind of vague. We do not have any data specifically to say that it is advantageous for the child to take accelerated math in high school. I think it depends on what the child's goals are. I do not think that you should pressure the child into taking accelerated math coursework, because if their data doesn't support the decision, it becomes a stressful environment. So if the child wants to accelerate, the only advantage that you get is you would start a year ahead in high school mathematics, but there are other points in time through their matriculation in high school that they can also gain that extra Carnegie unit to move ahead. It does not have to be done in the middle school space. Please be mindful that in the middle school space, your child is developmentally changing physically, chemically, psychologically, and if you're not taking all those things into account when we pressure our children to move into accelerated spaces, then it can be overwhelming. But it's not necessary. So I would assume the question is, can I get to calculus if I choose not to take the accelerated math pathway? And as a former Midtown High School employee, the answer is yes. There are opportunities to gain Carnegie units to get to the math coursework that you desire to get to. Are there any other questions?
There
Or
was
did
a
that answer your
question.
question?
Okay, no, you answered the one about the yearly math average.
So I will say that I think that we have to temper our desire to know what's going to happen in the high school space. We are prepping the students for the middle school space. So at which point in time we're moving into that high school space, we have a great partnership with Midtown High School. They come over and they talk to the students go over there. They talk to the parents about what that matriculation would look like. There are also charts to kind of go with the math pathway or what the options are. In the middle school space, the options are on grade level or the accelerated pathway. That is it.
This is just another slide that you all should have seen previously regarding our connections courses. Your students should have selected they should have selected 4 connections courses, 2 connections courses per semester. And I do want to point out that these are their preferred connections courses, so we cannot guarantee that they'll be placed in these, but instead it is just a preference. We do try our best to at least give them one of the courses that they do choose each semester, but there's no guarantee just based on enrollment and all of the similar classes that the students want. Band, orchestra, and chorus are our year-long courses, and we like to reiterate that every chance that we get. Students that sign up for those courses are committing to a year-long commitment, meaning they are taking that course both first semester and second semester. So just a reminder that band, orchestra, and chorus are courses that come with a year-long commitment. And again, everyone should have seen this slide because your students should have selected their preferences in the elementary schools that they attend currently. I'm not sure if we have anyone on to speak to the organizations.
Do we have any PTO representatives, foundation representatives on the call? If not, I can speak to them. I know most schools have a PTO or PTA. At the elementary feeder schools, we have a PTO. And in addition to that, so the PTO kind of handles what the needs are more granular. So they help with passing out perfect attendance treats, stocking the lounge for teachers to have snacks, helping with the tardy desk in the morning. And that's how you can get to see your students because we do not allow parents to come to lunches. So that would be an opportunity there to help with just different events that happen at the school, career day, STEAM night. PTO gets really involved in that. They help to raise funds to kind of keep that going, to be able to offer scholarships for we do grade level field trips. So those students who may have some financial need, they offer those scholarships in that space. And then under that PTO umbrella is our athletic boosters. So this is your first time engaging with athletic boosters. So we have a lot of district sports, but more club sports. Club sports fall under this booster umbrella. So an example of a club sport would be lacrosse, ultimate frisbee, help me out here, volleyball. So those are actual sports when you get to high school spaces that are GHSA explicit, but they fall under our club organizations, our club sports umbrella there, and Boosters helps to keep those projects or clubs going. And all of the information is on the website. Then Go Team, everyone has a Go Team that is pretty standard for all APS schools, so I don't really have to explain that. But I think you will be voting on who you want to represent you pretty soon. And then foundations. Foundations is who we utilize to kind of fund the bigger projects. So when we're talking about educational software platforms that the students use, like the PBIS rewards points, that's a big one that the students like to engage in because they like to get their rewards points to get Takis or to participate in, I think we're having a karaoke singing contest or something. So those are ways that the students can cash in those reward points. So they fund those types of things. They also fund
Saturday school.
bigger projects, things like, I'm sorry, was somebody talking?
Saturday school.
They fund Saturday school. We have that once a month. They fund our facilities improvement project. So they're working with me to get better audio in the gym. So that's what foundations is used for, like large scale projects that affect all students versus a subset of students. We really think that all of these parent organizations are important. And I know at the PTO roundtable parent discussion night, there were questions about how can I become involved? These are the ways to explicitly get involved in any of these organizations. They have subcommittees that work on fundraisers, that work on teacher appreciation, that work on collaborating with our nurse and our social worker to get supplies for those accidents that happen in school. I don't think we're quite aware of like what all happened or what you're about to experience, but this is typically where the physical change happens for our female students, then it might happen in the middle of the day. And so they may not be prepared for that to occur. And so PTO works with our social worker and nurse to make sure that there are supplies there for our young ladies that are transitioning. So please, please, please go to the website and peruse those opportunities. There are upcoming Zoom meetings to plan for next school year for PTO. Those include more specifically signing up for different subcommittees and becoming a part of the PTO board. So those meetings are occurring next month, I'm pretty sure, but if you check our school calendar and actually sign up for the RAMS report, that information is there as well. The RAMS report is sponsored by PTO, and that gives you an opportunity to know what's happening. It is a newsletter that comes out every Sunday. Did I miss anything? Ms. Willingham, as our assistant principal for sixth grade. I don't know if you want to come off mute and say hello and make sure you let us know if I missed anything.
I can't see both screens, so I'm not sure if she is off mute or.
I don't see her getting off mute, but yes, Ms. Scott is the sixth grade specific counselor. We have a counselor for every grade level. She is sixth grade. And then there's a specific counselor for seventh grade and handles those needs. And then another counselor for eighth grade that handles those needs and transitioning to high school.
This is our registration information. So for Rising Rams, which your students will be, and students that are new to Howard, enrollment has already opened up. So make sure that you all go ahead and enroll your students. If you have any questions regarding enrollment, you can always email dthregistration@apsk12.org. We also have information on our website that just lets you know what information you will need for enrollment. Those things are also listed here, but again, if you have any questions, our registrar is Miss Tracy Martin Walton, and she'll be more than happy to assist with any enrollment questions that you may have. Some of our upcoming Rise and Ram events. So we have Fun on the Field, which is sponsored by our PTO. That is April 26th, 5 to 7. We'll have different games out there. The students are able to mingle with each other and meet new students from all of our feeder schools. Then we also have Summer Bridge. That is July 22nd and 23rd from 9 to 12 on both of those days. If you have not already registered for Summer Bridge, please do so. During this time, again, they are able to mingle with some of our other feeder school students, learning how to maneuver through middle school, opening lockers, learning a little bit more about the curriculum, learning about our SEL process, being provided tours of the school. We have seen in the past 2 years that when our students attend Summer Bridge, it makes them a little bit more comfortable on the first days of schools. Those students are typically our leaders. They are not, as nervous to enter inside of our school buildings. So if you and your scholars are available, definitely we encourage them to attend Summer Bridge on those 2 days.
We will also put this presentation on our website under caregivers, resources, presentations, but we will update that date. It is April 25th, the Friday. Thank you for
Thank you.
noting that. There was a question about schedules. Schedules are not released until they are released in Parent Portal, which normally happens towards the end of July. There was also a question about open house. Traditionally, open house is on the day before school starts, so that would be July 31st. Typically, we have the privilege of drawing the short straw and getting the last time slot. So typically it is 1 to 3. As we get the actual calendar for next school year with the actual dates released by the district, we will send out that communication over the summer to give you the exact dates and times, but traditionally it has been July 31st, 1 to 3. Ms. Willingham, do you see any other questions that we missed?
Can you hear me?
We can hear.
Yes.
Oh,
Yay! I've been playing around with it. I don't know what. Good evening, parents. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm sorry that I am just now being able to speak. I saw questions about how we determine which gifted classes students get. Just for clarity, if they meet accelerated math and earth systems, I think that, and Ms. Hollis, you correct me if I'm wrong, we default them to those courses first, unless we
Yes.
opt out.
unless they opt out of it. If they
Yes.
opt out, then you opt out, and then we will place you into the social studies and ELA gifted courses. We do not offer a on-grade level math and on-grade level science gifted option. So those are served through those accelerated courses.
I think we've covered everything else. I do want to echo what Ms. Scott said about Summer Bridge. It does help for the transition. So please, if you are available and in town on those 2 days, please go ahead and register for Summer Bridge. The information, as Ms. Hollis said, we will post this to our website, but the flyer for Summer Bridge is also on our website currently. And please register by May 1st, because we would love to have everyone, but we just unfortunately cannot. So we do have to cut it at that deadline. And if anyone has any additional questions.
There's one more question that I want to answer before we go off of the stream. The state only requires us to give one gifted segment. We choose at Howard to give two, so that is why it's limited to two. So we've met state criteria by giving one section of gifted. We make it a policy to offer two. I think that was the last question I saw.
There is one question regarding the notarized affidavit. I'm going to ask that you send that one to our registrar, because then she can provide you with more information or provide you with that handout that you'll need to complete that document.
Okay, so we're going to stop streaming, and if you have any questions, please continue to place it in the chat or get off mute and answer. Thank you everyone for coming. We appreciate you supporting public education in the Midtown cluster and opting to choose David T. Howard as your next destination.